I'm Mark Seifter, and this is Arcane Mark. Welcome everyone to build a Monster Workshop 5, the final build of Monster Workshop. Doesn't mean it's the last one, that's just the name of the episode. So today, as before, we are going to build a new episode, a new monster, not a new episode. Just like the Sharkshasas and others before. So, as we always start out when we're building a new monster, and really when you're building almost anything, we want to start by coming up with the concept. So, everyone who has an idea for a monster concept, and while who knows what year it will be when you hear this on YouTube, for us here at Twitch, it is almost Halloween 2020, so probably like peak spooky and scary time being almost Halloween in 2020. So, what kind of monsters are people interested in for like just sort of a high concept of the monster? But we can have a vote and get started on the monster once we know the concept. So, Roll for Combat wants a one-headed, two-headed Orge. Alright. Does anyone have any other ideas? Alright, let's see. Wither King has an idea, which is a Chimera-type monster. Alright. Any other ideas for a monster? Super Flumph. Hard time imagining something spookier than a Pathfinder Tooth Fairy. Alright. I will put spookier Pathfinder Tooth Fairy. I mean, you can be spookier than the Pathfinder's base Tooth Fairy. In one of the settings that I ran games for Linda in, the Tooth Fairy is a unique entity that she is extremely powerful and uses sympathetic magic on people based on the fact that she has all of their teeth and can easily do rituals on them from afar using their body parts. Let's see. Rico wants to do an anti-Leshy. So we can have anti-Leshy on there. Anti-healing monster. Parasitic blight plant. Monster that attracts other monsters. Undead Leshy. Akashic / word mental essence elemental thing. Alright. Lots of good ideas so far. And Leshybot, like, talked about the episode almost immediately, so we should have people filing in. Let's see. Positive energy plane critter. Negative energy plane critter. Demon of the sin of smugness. Alright. And for a Halloween episode, 13 sounds like the right number. So, everyone vote for your top 2 choices out of these 13 choices. We sure do have more ideas than viewers. That's because some viewers came up with, I think one viewer came up with 6 or 7 of these 13 ideas. So vote for your top 2. out of these 13 choices, and we will see which concept we're going to move on with. All right. Okay. So it looks like, starting off, there's some interest in that anti-healing monster, but we've also got some votes from Linda about the Akashic Word Mental Essence Quote Elemental, and the Parasitic Blight Plant, but nobody else voted for, or actually no, the Akashic Mental Elemental has 2, and so far it's pretty widespread. I guess that makes sense. And Rico will change 5 to 7. And Wither King is going to change the 6 to a 10. And with all of that having moved in, it looks like right now the winner is going to be it is a tie between 10 and 7, and unlike in some other episodes where we can be like, oh, it can be more than one of these things. There are some of these that would work together, but there's definitely no world in which a Parasitic Blight Plant has an overlap with an Akashic Word Mental Essence Elemental. They're very different from each other. So it looks like Numbat is going to break that tie, and actually, honestly, let's do a runoff for the ones that had the highest amount, just so that people aren't like, well, I voted for this one that nobody else voted for. So the ones that had the highest were 10, 7, and actually, I guess it was just 10 and 7. So no, never mind. I changed my mind again. We'll do the Parasitic Blight Plant. Alright, so our concept is Parasitic Blight Plant. What level do we think this Parasitic Blight Plant is? So there's certainly a lot of monsters that are plants. If we look at the type of creatures that are plants by level, I wonder if we can do that on the Archives of Nethys creature filter. Let's take a look. That seems like a place where we would be able to do that. Alright, so it looks like there are some very different opinions about what level to make a Blight Plant monster. We're going to just throw 40 out the window as not being a possibility because of the fact that we don't know how to do something that's 40. Alright, it looks like I'm getting an error from the Archives of Nethys creature filter, so I'm not going to do that. I wonder what levels, if there are any levels that are missing don't have a lot of creatures for summon plant at those levels. But regardless, let's look at what levels we have here. So it looks like the average is about 14. So let's go with a level 14 Blight Plant monster. So we know we're making a level 14 monster here. So with that in mind, let's think a little bit about this. So it's a Blight Plant monster. Because we're doing this in a workshop situation where we're just kind of voting and doing it together for fun real fast, we are probably going to want to start and use a roadmap rather than do something too fancy. So Are we seeing this Blight Plant monster as a brute that is all about, like, real heavy damage, but, like, kind of more barbarian-like in some ways? Or a magical striker that like, has some attacks, but some backup magic? A skill paragon that's focused on a lot of skills? A skirmisher that, like, moves around really fast? A sniper that makes ranged attacks from afar? A soldier that's kind of fightery, just, like, hold the line? Or a spellcaster that's very spell-related? So, considering these are not going to be the Blight Oozes from PF1, is some kind of plant monster that's parasitic with the theme of Blight, like the Blight spell, as opposed to Blight like the Blight Ooze. So let's see. Rico says maybe 13 or 15, it could be the max level for a 9th or 10th level summon. That's true. We could make it 13 so they can fit in on a 9th level summon. That's fine with me. It's close to the average that people picked. Or make it 15 just so it's exactly what Linda went for. So Numbat says it could be insidious, stealthy, and poisonous. I think that could work potentially. It just depends on how we're going to deal with this. So it's like somewhere in the 13 to 15 range. It's pretty strong when it comes to a fight. But does it sort of sneak up on you? Wither King says maybe it's going to change its size when it drains the life out of the nature around it. So it might start out small but get bigger. Linda says, sniper that hides among the land it has twisted to its ends. So it sounds like it's some kind of sort of very insidious creature that is going to use the fact that it has this, is messing up the area around you, and then that is going to allow it to potentially hide and then eventually grow and grow stronger and possibly be so big that it engulfs you, as Steven is saying, with rot attacks. So that leads to a pretty interesting sort of pattern for the creature, where it starts out small and insidious and it winds up like big and out of control. Now, the way that works with typical PC tactics of alpha striking things might not work great if it's like the monster can only do its best things based on waiting a certain amount of time. So what we might want to do is even say that the monster absorbs like rot and corruption and destruction, and so therefore, as it's getting damaged, that might be like when it gets hurt past a certain point, might be what causes it to blow out and explode into a more dangerous creature, rather than be like, oh, it has to wait each round it gets bigger, so that way. Hitting it hard first actually can trigger its phase change, and you have that happen at a time when you know that it's actually going to be more likely to matter during the encounter, rather than like, oh, we didn't get to see this new thing that it can do. And there could be some combination of it. So, yeah, let's go with that. So we know that this is kind of a tricky and sneakier creature, and because of that fact, it probably doesn't necessarily have like quite as good stats straight out at fighting you, with all the stuff that it's doing to get sneakier and get stronger. And it's a parasitic creature. So let's take a look then at what some of these benchmarks are telling us. So if it's some kind of a snipery, skirmishy thing, it's definitely going to have a high dex modifier. And it's definitely going to have a low in its fortitude compared to its reflex and perception. And it might be able to attack you from range or use other special attacks like that. Alright, so that's great. That's going to make it a little easier. Let's say that it's level 13, I guess. Actually, let's keep it at 14, maybe make it... This seems like it might be uncommon because of how complicated it is with, like, using the environment around it and then growing at a phase change. This might be something that's, like, for slightly more advanced GMs and not, like, sort of a summon plant based on the way we're creating it. So we could keep it at our actual voted mean level of 14. So, here we go. It is, by virtue of what it's doing here, being a sniper skirmisher, it might have lower hit points, but based on the way that we're going to do a phase change, I think that we can give it a better amount of hit points, but also keep in mind that when it does its phase change, it might be possible that like its defenses go down and its offenses go up when it's going out of control. So I'll put it at the standard hit points of right now. I'm gonna do like 255. 255 hit points. And let's take a look at its ability modifiers as well. So we said that it's going to have a high dexterity. So that's going to be for its level 14, that's going to be a +8. Its strength is not necessarily that high before it grows out of control. It probably has okay con, even though its fortitude in the end isn't good, because of the fact that, like, or maybe it doesn't. Maybe it has to suck in life energy and blight things because of its poor con. Rico, yeah, I think that it's true that a lot of the arcane marks are not good for creatures, are not great for summons. Like, maybe the Sharkshasa could be okay for a summon, but a lot of them are not super good for that. Let's give it like lower than low con because of the fact that that's why it needs to drain the life out of things, because its con is just not great on its own. So +3 con, +5 strength. How smart is this thing? Is this plant creature? Does it do most of these from instinct, or is it smart enough to really have a plan about what it does? I think we should figure that out because it's really going to flavor some of the rest of it. Meanwhile, I will put in like maybe +5 wisdom for its cunning, and it's probably not super charismatic because it's a plant. It's a blight plant. Let's see. Deliberately evil is spookier. Okay, so let's give it a low, but for a creature of its level, which is still +4, because you can go lower than low to like super low. You could put as low as you want. That's just sort of a low for like, it's reasonably okay at it because it's had 2 chances to raise the stat, I suppose. So we wound up with +8 dex, +5 strength and wisdom, +4 int, +3 con, and +2 charisma. It's a spooky evil blight plant. Alright, speaking of being spooky and evil, what alignment should this evil plant be? Neutral evil, probably? I'm guessing. We'll see if there are any other opinions. But neutral evil is like the evil green man and some of the other types of things from PF1. So I think that makes sense. And I think its size is probably, it sounds to me like it starts out at small. So, but then it grows larger. So that makes it sort of an anti-Leshy in that it starts at the size of a Leshy. And we know we're using a high perception because of the fact that we got that from our sort of roadmaps. So we've got perception +26. Then we can get some saves. We know it's got a bad fortitude. So fortitude is going to be low. That is 22. Reflex is going to be high. That is 28. So it's much better than its fortitude. And its will can be somewhere in between at +25. Alright. And armor class. So when it's in snipey form, and it's so small and hiding around everywhere, it probably has pretty standard. So the high AC is standard for a lot of monsters. But then probably whatever the ability is where it gets big is going to really adjust its AC. Alright. So let's move down into skills. So we usually will have some number of skills that we're good at. Let's see. We obviously have stealth, and we're obviously going to be very good at stealth. So that's going to be stealth plus 28. Take a high stealth. What other skills might we have? Linda says athletics and nature. That makes sense. Probably acrobatics also, because of its very high dexterity. So maybe it's stealth plus 28, acrobatics plus 26, a little higher than moderate. Athletics plus 25, moderate, and nature plus 25. Kitsune Warlock says it might have survival. That's possible. Not every monster that lives out in the woods has it. Let's look at the uses of survival to see what kind of things it gives you and whether or not this plant monster would want to be able to do those. So it would be able to sense direction, coverage, tracks, and track are some of the main things that it would be able to do with that. Covered tracks could be a useful use for it. So we could give it some survival as well. We'll give it 23 so it can cover its tracks. Alright. So we've got our skills. Next up, let's see. Do we have any sort of immunities, resistances, or weaknesses? So we might have some kind of, like, if it's some kind of out of control parasitic vine creature, it could be weak against slashing. And so I could see that. So we could potentially give it like weakness. Let's see, it's level 14, so maybe 10, somewhere near the minimum weakness. Weakness, slashing 10, give it some extra hit points for that. Make it a even round 300. And so at 150 hit points is when it does the phase change, and we can make it easier to kill it, but kind of go out of control on the offense once you get it to that point. Alright, let's see. So its basic strengths. So we know that it starts out as a sniper. So we probably want a situation where, let's see. We probably want a situation where its best starting strike is going to be a range strike. So we've got like probably some kind of like, what is its ranged attack before it's gonna have some kind of like a melee vine, and that probably gets bigger and starts engulfing people when it gets into its second mode. But it also is gonna have to have some kind of ranged attack if it wants to be a sniper. So does it shoot out some kind of a evil seed pod to keep on that Leshy theme of anti-Leshy? Does it like spray out some poison? What do people think might be a good ranged attack for this parasitic blight plant? A little blight bomb. Really, we can name it whatever we want. I'll start looking up some statistics while we think about that. So it could probably have a high accuracy, but its damage is probably not that high because it's a sort of a sniping ranged opponent. So maybe there we go. I put in some things. I'll tell you guys about it. So something with spores. All right, so we'll call it rot spore, because people said rot and spore. So we'll have a rot spore strike plus 29 that does 3d8 plus 15 poison damage, maybe. And then it can have a vine that's plus 29, and it starts out not even that good because it's melee, and we can lower the damage to do like 3d. We can call the vine like agile and finesse, since it's a dexterity based friend. the Rot Spore has to have a range as well, or a range increment. Well, this is a level 14 monster. It can probably have a pretty long range increment. Maybe range increment 100 feet, like a bow. And the Vine can be maybe low damage, which is 3d6 plus 13 is one of the damages that it could be. But maybe we can just keep it with the same static modifier, be 3d4 plus 15. So it's not a very good... The Vine is not a very good attack when it starts. Let's see. So also the Rot Spore, it hits you, but it might also have a secondary effect. So we could say it's like plus Rot, and then we can come up with what the Rot effect is later on. And the Vine probably has some kind of an improved grab, because why not? I mean, it's not like it can grab that much when it's small, but we can put that in there too. Linda points out a disease could be a natural fit for the creature too. Let's consider that if we have, like, not already made it super complicated before then, because disease would have its own sort of bespoke disease stat block that we could put in. Alright, so we've got some kind of rot. We've got improved grab on the Vine. So, now the main thing that's going to be is sort of like explosive blight ability. And that's going to be something to the effect of when the... Oh, let's start coming up with a name, because I'm putting down different things here. So when the... I'm going to call it Anti-Leshy for now. We can just change it to something else later. So, like, when the Anti-Leshy is reduced below half its maximum HP, the absorbed blight within its body expands outward in explosive growth. This transforms it into a gargantuan creature. Reduces this could turn into a gargantuan creature. It takes a, let's give it a massive AC penalty at this point. So like maybe a -3 status. Remember circumstance, because, well, I don't know. Let's see. I've changed to become large and bulky and this is a sort of a thing that's part of the creature. It can be untyped, so it takes a -3 penalty. We're just kind of reducing its AC. It can work together with other things to its AC, but gains to its AC, gains a plus. Let's see, let's add a lot of damage to its Vine since it's become so much bigger. So we're at, let's give it a, ooh, I see. So we would want to be going up if we went to like extreme damage on this. Maybe not quite too extreme, but that would be 20 additional damage. So maybe we give it, let's see, D6, D8, D10, D12. We'll keep it with the dice. We can give a plus 15 status bonus to damage rolls with its Vine strength, and gains the engulf ability. And then we can say engulf, 3 actions, requirements, only when the Anti-Leshy can only use engulf after explosive blight. And then what are the things that we have to put into an engulf? Let's see. So an engulf, the way that it is written is, oh wait, it's a 2 actions, not a 3 actions. What's the format for what we have to include for an engulf? It will have to include a DC, a damage, an escape DC, and a rupture. So that shouldn't be too bad. Let's see what other ideas people have here. We've got the name of Wither King, Yehessel, Lurkervine, Kudzuzu, alright. So, it's got low AC, and its hit points have been reduced to half by this point, but its hit points are actually fine. Even though it's snipey and hard to find at first. Speaking of which, we should, other than just giving it stealth, we probably want some ability it can't use after explosive growth that involves sneaking around. So maybe some kind of like sniper shot, 2 actions, requirements. The anti-leshy must not, can only use this, can only use sniper shot before explosive blank. I'm not writing these out like super formally or anything. So sniper shot maybe is just a very simple, the anti-leshy uses a rot spore strike, then hides, then sneaks. It's a 2-action activity that it has, and then it replaces that with engulf when it becomes super enormous. And so that would need to have a DC, which we can find in the character building, or sorry, the creature building rules. We might as well use the high DC, so that can be DC 34. It's going to need damage, and it's going to need escape DC and rupture. So escape DC can just also be, probably be 34. No need to get super fancy on it. Damage can be, well, what are we going to do? We're engulfing, so probably not like a super huge amount, since that is also like putting it inside and it's going to happen automatically each turn. What do we think? Maybe do something similar to its lower vine damage from before. What do we have there? So it's can be 3d4 plus 15, maybe the same as what it would have done with its vine attack. Let's put that in there. So it's gonna be 3d4 plus 15 slashing damage. And escape DC 34 and a rupture of, we can say, yeah, 30. Alright. So, we've got a lot of good things for this creature right now. Considering Warlock says we might want to put a cover requirement for Sniper Shot, I think that's covered by the fact that it tries to use hide and sneak, because those have requirements of having cover or conceal, being concealed with regard to the creatures you're trying to hide and sneak from. Alright, let's use Blight Bramble. It looks like that one has been catching on. So, I will take Anti-Leshy, and I will replace it with Blight Bramble. There we go. We've got a Blight Bramble. So, the one thing that we don't have right now for the Blight Bramble is what kind of annoying thing we're going to do to people with the rot ability. Like, what's the added effect of its ranged attack? So, we could do a disease, but those take a while to really mess with people. So, maybe we should do something that's a little bit faster acting on its opponents. So, how about that we give them some kind of, like, persistent poison damage that, and a sickened. So sickened sort of goes towards being ill, but without being quite as complicated as a disease. So, creature hit by Blight Brambles, Rot Spore, strike must succeed at a DC 34 Fortitude save, or well, we just say it takes, actually, you know, we can put the persistent poison damage just, like, on its own. And not in the rot. So I'll just add in a D8 persistent poison damage, and then rot, creature hit by the Rebel's Rot Sport Strike, DC 34 Fortitude save, or be sickened 2. I can say sickened, maybe, or sickened 3 on a critical failure. Alright, let's see. Could the rot have a doom or drain effect? It could. It could have a drain, maybe. Probably not doom. That's a little more metaphysical than we're getting into here, but it could have a drain. Potentially. So, speaking of which, Linda was saying maybe maybe it does drain some life from you with its vines when its explosive blight has been activated. So we'll say additionally, when it damages a creature with its vine strike, the Blight Bramble gains, or we'll say, yeah, the Blight Bramble gains, it should be an amount of temporary hit points that's not too ridiculous, but also is an amount that matters enough to be calculating the temporary hit points. So temporary hit points equal to the result, just to make it take less time of the 3d4, like, we can make it be the 3d4 damage that it rolled for the vine already, just without any modifiers. That might not be enough, and that's a pain. So maybe just gains temporary hit points equal to half the damage dealt. Is that going to be too much? How much is that going to be? So that could be like 20 on each one. That's a lot. That may be too much. But you know what? Let's give it a -4 to AC. So its AC is just absolute garbage, and it can gain this massive number of temporary hit points. Alright, so I think that's what we got. So it basically starts out, it's small, it's hiding, it can use Sniper Shot on you and give you a rot effect with persistent poison, and it can attack with the vine and melee. It's not a great choice. But then it gets to the point where it is much more, let me see. Yeah, then it gets to the point where it grows out, it becomes gargantuan. Its AC is really problematically low for it, but its Vine Strike's damage goes sky high, and it can engulf you or attack with the vine and drain hit points. Drains the creature's life force. And let's see. We should probably say something like, once its hit points recover above half after a day, the Blight Bramble's body, most of the Blight Bramble's mass decays and sloughs off, leaving, reducing it back to small size. So it should have some way to return back to the way that it was before, after a time, if it gets healed up. Alright, I think that gives it a good number of options without getting too out of hand. It actually may not be too complicated for an Arcane Mark monster. Here are the quick notes that I have. Let's see. Oh, it's not all gonna fit in here, but we can also put this up more easily on where was that? That was this transforms it. We can put it on tiny.cc/arcanemark. There is all of it. Not on tiny.cc/arcanemark, but if you want to see it not split up like that, we can go to tiny.cc/arcanemark for the Blight Bramble, as we've been talking about it here in chat and putting some things down that were from people's ideas. Let's see, where's the workshops section? I will stuff it in right now. There it is. Rico says we've got to replace that rot effect with a disease just to make it more complicated. Alright. So, what do people think? Does that seem like we've got a reasonable monster? I think so. Any other parting shots for the Blight Bramble? Yep. Alright. So in that case, let's say bye to YouTube and then follow up a bit more with Twitch. So, bye YouTube. See you next time.